Hello, Handel Wright. In preparation for your presentation at the 2021 UNESCO DCMÉT Chair Symposium, thank you for participating in this interview. Please tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Andre. My name is Handel Wright. I'm originally from Sierra Leone, from Freetown, Sierra Leone. My people are people who were returned to Africa at the end of slavery, which is why I would have a name like Handel Wright. I grew up in Freetown. I studied English literature and loved it, and taught English as a high school teacher for 2 years before coming to Canada for my graduate studies. I did an MA at the University of Windsor. I did an MEd at Queen's and a PhD at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. I then taught in Tennessee. So I've moved from Sierra Leone to Canada to the US. I taught in Tennessee for 10 years. I taught cultural studies and I taught education there, and then came back to Canada, and I've been in Canada for the last, about 16 years.
Thanks. What are your concerns right now about your country or region?
Well, I guess the concerns that are global, right? COVID is a big one, and what COVID is doing and what it's revealing as the disparities between countries, between different ethno-racial groups, and especially between the rich and the poor, including rich countries and poor countries. I'm worried about the health of my family here in Canada and my family back home in Sierra Leone, and to see what's happening with vaccines, around who gets them and who doesn't get them, whereas the third world, people hardly have any at all. So, and I'm also very worried about the rise in racism and fascism around the world, including in Canada, anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, but especially, and even more recently, anti-Asian racism. It's very worrying how those things kind of converge and come together, one feeding off the other. And a kind of populism that, that is also very racist, happening in Europe as well as the US, and to some extent also happening in Canada. So that combination of the threat of COVID and health issues and racism all over the world, and a kind of mainstreaming of white supremacy really worry me.
Thanks. And what are your current sources of inspiration?
Well, the other side of that is what inspires me. So all the movements against those forms of racism and those disparities. The Black Lives Matter movement, I think, is absolutely incredible. The kind of Rhodes Must Fall kind of anti and decolonial struggle emanating originally from South Africa. Young people in general and their activism and their enthusiasm really inspires me. The complexity of identity politics, where now people are not just looking at one issue, but taking up issues intersectionally. And even in my own institution, I think we finally have a president who I consider to be an anti-racist activist. And the position that I now hold as a senior advisor to the president of University of British Columbia on anti-racism and inclusive excellence. So personally, and in projection from what young people are doing, and certain movements like Black Lives Matter really inspire me.
Well, thank you very much, Handel Wright, for this interview.
You're very welcome, Andre.